Hi everybody, my name's Ryan, this is Roll for Initiative, and just about any monster can make your characters bleed. But what happens after the fight when they don't have their favorite sword or suit of armor? Or they're running around like an idiot attacking all of their friends? Well, that's what we're going to look at when we take a look at the Rust Monster and Gibbering Mouther in this episode of Monster Mash. So let's start things off with the Rust Monster. It's a pretty cool creature. It's of medium size, kind of looks like a giant cricket with a long tail and giant feathery antenna off the front of its face. Now, its bite can do a bit of damage, but that's not the scary part. The main thing about the Rust Monster is that it loves metal. It can smell any ferrous metal within 30 feet of it. Now, traditionally, it prefers things like iron and steel, but will still eat other types of metal, silver, gold, and platinum. But it does prefer ferrous metals over everything else, and is not afraid to attack the characters that are trying to use that metal to fend it off. The Rust Monster uses its antenna to corrode any metal that it can touch within 5 feet of it. Now, if it's something that your characters are wearing, like their weapons or their armor, it's a dex check of 11 in order to avoid the attack. If it's a pile of metal or something like that, on a successful attack, the Rust Monster destroys a 1-foot cube of it. They also like to eat metal, so something that's sneaking up on a party if they're sleeping or not paying attention. What if it goes for their treasure stash and all of a sudden they don't have nearly as much gold and silver? Because yeah, it does prefer the weapons, the armors, things like that, but for the most part, they'll eat any metal that they can find. It's whenever the Rust Monster starts to attack the weapons and armor that things get really interesting. Now, it is important to note that this is for non-magical weapons and armor, but for your mundane stuff, it reduces its effectiveness. On a successful attack, it reduces the attack score of a weapon by 1, and if it hits a -5, the weapon is destroyed. It'll also lower the armor class of shields and armor by 1. And if the AC is ever lowered to 0, then the armor or the shield is destroyed as well. The Rust Monster is a pretty big and scary thing and could leave a number of members of your party without their weapons or without their armor, and that has some long-lasting effects as well. So if your party is tunneling through some mines or in an old crypt, running into one of the Rust Monsters might be something that they need to run away from or be very careful as they choose to assault it. Now let's look at the Gibbering Mouther. This is a terrifying aberration that is just a mound of ooey gooey mess covered in mouths and teeth. It's something that as a player I never want to run into. It can do quite a bit of damage. It has a bite attack as well as a spittle attack. Now, its bite is pretty hefty, plus after being bitten your characters are going to need to make a DC 10 strength check or knocked prone. And if any of the characters are ever killed by the Gibbering Mouther's bite attack, they are absorbed into the Mouther itself. It stands there and it eats them. Its spittle attack is pretty great. Any creature hit by the spittle or any creature within 5 feet of that have to make a dex check of 13 or be blinded until the Mouther's next turn. Even getting to the Mouther is difficult. A 10-foot radius around the creature is considered difficult terrain, and anyone starting their turn in that has to make a strength check or have their movement reduced to 0. And if all of that wasn't enough, there's the gibbering part. They make this weird, very confusing, very awful sound at all times. Any creatures within 20 feet that can hear the Gibbering Mouther have to make a wisdom save at the start of their turn. Now, if they fail the DC 10 check, then they're not able to make any reactions for the turn, and are forced to roll a d8 to figure out what random action it is that they do have to take. Now, half of the time they won't do anything. On a 1 through 4, they take no action whatsoever. On a 5 or 6, they lose their action and their bonus action and have to use all of their movement to simply run in a random direction. Now, this is an interesting thing. It could be running deeper into the cavern that you're exploring, or maybe running back from the thing that was chasing them, or just heading off an alleyway somewhere farther away from the party. This can really introduce some confusion into the fight. But on a 7 and an 8, then the character has to make an attack against a randomly chosen creature. Now, the creature does need to be within reach, and it could be another monster, but more likely, especially if your parties tend to outnumber the monsters on the field, they'll be attacking their friends. Now, it may be that your players get lucky. They could make the save, or something not so bad happens to them. But remember, any creature that starts their turn within 20 feet and can hear the Mouther has to make that check every single time. So there you've got the Gibbering Mouther and the Rust Monster, two really cool monsters that I think have some creative uses and are something more than just hacking back and forth at each other's hit points until we figure out who it is that survives. What are some creative monsters that you really like, or that you think introduce something new to the battlefield? I'd love to hear what your favorites are in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and you can hit the little bell icon if you would like to get notices anytime we have a new video. I want to say a special thanks to all of our patrons over at Patreon. If you'd like to head over there, patreon.com/rollforinitiative, and take a look at what some of our perks are. Maybe choose to become a patron and join us on our campaign. That would be really cool of you. I want to say thanks to Lainey Ambrose Craft, Will Holmes, RV Bassa, and Sean Hillman. They're just some of the folks that really help make all of this possible. So that's this episode of Monster Mash, and I can't wait to see you again when it's time to roll for initiative.